The pity is that many people deliberately choose such poor, broken cisterns when, close at hand, in plain sight and easy reach, is a fountain of living waters, a source of spiritual strength ample for every need. This fountain never runs dry. Its waters are consistently refreshing and invigorating. They flow as strongly on the darkest days as when the sun is shining. They flow alike amid the gentle zephyrs of summer and winter's raging hurricanes. They will continue to flow through time's last and greatest storm. Somehow we must find this fountain. For here and here alone we shall discover the strong faith, sure hope, and true courage we shall need for the crisis ahead. 3. Writing on the wall. 25 centuries ago, when the Babylonian Empire was at the height of its power, its capital became so wealthy that it was called the Golden City. Behind massive fortifications, its citizens believed that no evil could ever befall them. They basked in a sense of security hitherto unknown by any community. So certain were they of the impregnability of their city that they felt free to indulge every sordid passion, reckless of the consequences. Then it was that there appeared on the wall of King Belshazzar's palace those flaming words of condemnation: God hath numbered thy kingdom, and finished it. Thou art weighed in the balances, and art found wanting. Daniel chapter 5 verse 26, 27. Nor was judgment long in coming. That very night, the Bible says, was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain. And Darius the Median took the kingdom. Verses 30, 31. Babylon need not have fallen. A previous king, Nebuchadnezzar, had been counseled by the prophet Daniel: break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. Daniel chapter 4 verse 27. Nebuchadnezzar heeded the warning, but his successors forgot it. Temporary reform was followed by worse iniquities, culminating in Belshazzar's feast, the writing on the wall, and doom. This sequence of events, this decline from power through perversity to oblivion, is traceable through almost every nation and empire of history. This was the course of Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. Of Egypt, Tyre, and Carthage. Of the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and of Russia under the Tsars. Invisibly but inexorably, a nation's sins are recorded. They pile up on the balances of heaven until finally the scales tilt and probation runs out. Then appears the writing on the wall, followed soon by judgment. Today the whole world is involved. Modern Babylon encompasses the earth. Never was there so much prosperity. Never were protecting ramparts so high. Stone walls and bronze gates have become nuclear bombs and rockets. But as in every ancient empire, behind the great deterrent, character disintegrates and lawlessness grows worse from year to year. Addressing a symposium on nuclear education in New York recently, Dr. Charles W. Schilling of the Atomic Energy Commission declared, "We have been living aimless lives with disjointed purposes. Too many of us have been concerned with bigger incomes, bigger television screens, and bigger cars, and not with bigger ideas on how to live together on this globe, or with developing a backlog of scientific information on which our freedom and our very lives may soon depend." He concluded his remarks by saying, "There is a justifiable uneasiness existing in America today related to our failure to live up to our moral capacity as a nation. Still fresh in everybody's mind are the congressional investigations into various phases of American life. Inquiry into the racketeering in labor unions produced an alarming report, including intimidation, intolerance, and embezzlement, also foreign to the ideals and principles of the Founding Fathers. Shortly thereafter came the investigation of TV quiz programs, revealing a sordid mass of trickery, falsehood, and fraud. Then the spotlight turned upon radio music, and in particular upon the disc jockeys who, to a larger extent than anyone suspected, control it. Again, as platter after platter was turned over, a putrid stench emerged. A nasty new word was added to the nation's vocabulary, payola, a synonym for the new type of graft that greed has spawned. About this same time Look magazine sent 12 reporters to discover the effect of these investigations upon the general public. Upon their return they declared that the TV and disc jockey scandals, the Sherman Adams and Van Doren cases, the conspiracies by union officials and Chicago policemen, were only incidents of an epidemic of immorality. On a national scale, they reported, few seem immune to the cancer of moral indifference. A moral relativeness seems to have replaced the moral certitudes of the past, they commented. People feel it is all right to flout laws of which they disapprove, whether liquor, gambling, traffic, tax, or other types of laws. An insurance adjuster told them, "I hate to say this, but 75% of the people we deal with now have no morals at all." Quarter by quarter John Edgar Hoover issues his crime reports. The trend is always in the same direction. More murders, more assaults, more rapes, more burglaries, more thefts, more vandalism, more juvenile delinquency, a sad and terrifying picture. Everyday newspapers are filled with stories of savage, brutal attacks on innocent people. Bank robberies occur with such frequency that they have become an item of secondary interest. Equally sinister is the universal school of crime conducted by the TV industry, by which millions of children and youth are fed a daily diet of horror and sadism, shooting and killing. The dissemination of pornographic publications, now a multi-million-dollar industry, is another growing evil, supported by large numbers of people who have lost all sense of moral standards. Modern novels, movies, and movie advertisements betray the same ugly trend. So do the tragic divorce statistics and the appalling number of illegitimate births. In his book entitled The American Sex Revolution, Professor P. A. Sorokin, of Harvard University, says, "Our civilization has become so preoccupied with sex that it now oozes from all pores of American life. We are completely surrounded by the rising tide of sex, which is flooding every compartment of our culture, every section of our social life." Pages 19-54. In the opinion of this distinguished authority in social science, this trend, unless arrested, could well destroy Western civilization as it once destroyed both Greece and Rome. The people of America are richer than any nation in history, says Dr. Roy G. Ross, General Secretary of the National Council of Churches. We have equipped ourselves with a great array of gadgets and devices for comfortable living. We are nearer to the elimination of poverty than the most optimistic dared hope 50 years ago. We have made great advances in the elimination of the diseases afflicting humanity. We have extended the span of life and provided increasing protection for our infants, our older citizens and the disabled. We have increased our leisure time and our capacity for travel. But notwithstanding these facts, Christian people are aware that something is wrong and they are restless. Report to the Fifth General Assembly, page 13. Among America's deficiencies, Dr. Ross lists the following: first, lack of any great spiritual purpose; second, lack of clear concepts of morals and standards of conduct; third, lack of concern for underprivileged segments of the population; fourth, weakening of the family unit and a loosening conviction regarding the sanctity of love; fifth, the rising tide of juvenile delinquency. Until a larger portion of our people can again arrive at a real as compared with a nominal belief in a God-controlled universe where some absolutes in moral and ethical principles obtain, he says, until more adults believe in these principles to the point of making them the guide to their own conduct, and are demanding that they shall guide the conduct of government, business operations, and social procedure, until a larger number of parents regain their belief in the home as an institution for developing sound character patterns, until we can give our youth some sense of purpose beyond material advance, our nation will fall short of her potential inner strength for influencing future world trends, and we are bound to be an uneasy and conscience-stricken people. Ibid, page 17. Grave indeed is America's peril today. Not only because of the corrupting effects of evil and the weakness accruing from the gradual disappearance of moral purpose, but even more because the record of all this decadence and failure is piling up fast in the balances of heaven. True, there is much good on one side of the scales, but what of the other? What of all the crime, vandalism, pornography, divorce, alcoholism, gambling, self-indulgence, and greed recorded there? If history has one lesson above all others for this country and the world today, it is that national apostasy brings national disaster. God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians chapter 6 verse 7. All down the centuries, empires, nations, and cities have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. They have seen the writing on the wall unlearned, too late, of approaching doom. To ancient Nineveh, the rich, arrogant, corrupt capital of Assyria, God sent this warning: woe to the bloody city, all full of lies. I am against you. I will treat you with contempt, and make you a gazing stock. And all who look on you will shrink from you and say, wasted is Nineveh, who will bemoan her? Nahum chapter 3 verses 1-7, RSV. Shortly thereafter Assyria was overthrown, never to rise again. When the highly privileged kingdom of Judah gravely disappointed its divine founder, the prophet Jeremiah brought to it a dramatic message. Breaking an earthen bottle before its rulers, he said, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, even so will I break this people and this city, as one breaketh a potter's vessel, that cannot be made whole again." Jeremiah chapter 19 verse 11. Months later, invaders from Babylon brought destruction and captivity to a people who thought such things could never happen to them. Addressing Jerusalem with tears in his voice, Jesus Christ foretold the doom of the city which had lost its way and failed its destiny. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. Matthew chapter 23 verses 37, 38. Within 40 years Roman armies sacked the city, leaving not one stone upon another. Today similar words of warning echo from nation to nation around the world. Upon the walls of every palace and parliament, every congress and hall of justice, every military base and college campus, every office and factory, every theater, movie house, and racetrack, a hand from heaven is writing the awesome, fateful words, weighed in the balances and found wanting. This is the third dimension of the gathering storm. The tragic events soon to burst upon the world will not be merely the result of man's tampering with natural forces beyond his capacity to tame. They will not be just the inevitable aftermath of foolish planning and misplaced hopes. They will also be a judgment. They will have a moral aspect and bear the hallmark of divine retribution. And it is this that magnifies the present crisis above any hitherto experienced. Involved are not only man's temporal possessions and way of life, but also his eternal destiny. Ahead, in the deepening darkness, there is not only calamity on a stupendous scale, but confrontation with the one whose laws have been flouted, whose love has been spurned, whose honor has been trampled in the dust. For this encounter the greatest courage of all will be required, a courage of purer essence than any that war or natural disaster demands. Needed also will be courage to resist evil with holy boldness, to endure persecution without flinching, to stand for right though the heavens fall. Where shall such spiritual fortitude as this be found? Where indeed? Perchance in the pages that follow. Part 2, Courage from God. 4, Hand on the helm. 5, View of the throne. 6, Eye on the future. 7, Plans for eternity. 8, Voice in the dark. 9, Strength for today. Amid life's worst storms it is comforting to know that there is a hand on the helm. It is the hand of God who, with infinite wisdom and understanding, will bring his people safely through them all. Harry Anderson, artist RSH. 4, Hand on the helm. Some years ago I was crossing the Atlantic on the Queen Mary when she ran into a heavy storm. In the worst moments she rolled so far over that I wondered if she would ever right herself again. Simultaneously her bow rose and fell with prodigious leaps, while every few minutes a giant wave crashed against her side, causing the whole fabric of the ship to shudder. Like most of the other passengers, I lay on my bunk seasick and helpless, yearning for land as a blind man longs for sight. Had the fate of that great Cunard rested in my poor hands during that night of anguish, she would surely have foundered. Fortunately for all aboard, it didn't. Instead, there was a captain on the bridge made of sterner stuff than I, a man who had spent his life on the ocean, a man of experience, wisdom, and good judgment. In him we all trusted and he brought us safely to port. Any courage I had on that voyage, and sometimes, I confess, mine was at a very low ebb, came from confidence in the man whose hand was on the helm. Far below, on D-deck, to be precise, I could neither see nor hear him, but it was enough to know that he was there, in charge. So in the gathering storm now threatening all mankind, to endure and outlast it we shall need to trust someone far wiser and stronger than ourselves. Attempting to battle it alone will invite both disillusionment and despair. But whom can we trust? Certainly none of the political figures whose names crash the headlines from week to week. They come and go with no semblance of permanence or any indication of special wisdom. Not many years ago some people thought Benito Mussolini had all the answers. He hadn't. He was a dismal failure. So, too, was Adolf Hitler, though for a decade he rode a high tide of popularity among his people. Roosevelt, Churchill, Stalin, Eisenhower, all great figures in their day, are now but names in history books for a new generation to memorize. Religious leaders are equally transitory. In most Protestant churches they don't last as long as congressmen. Even the Pope, usually elected in old age, has but a brief life expectancy. Wise indeed is the counsel of the psalmist, put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. His breath goeth forth, he returneth to his earth, in that very day his thoughts perish. Psalm chapter 146 verses 3, 4. Perhaps great preachers like Peel or McCracken of New York, or great evangelists like Billy Graham, could provide the moral and spiritual leadership required? They couldn't, and they would be the first to reject the suggestion. Don't trust us, they would say, trust God. And that is exactly what we must somehow learn to do. For only God is worthy of our complete and abiding confidence in this critical hour. Only he is great enough to handle all the tumultuous forces involved, good enough to be both absolutely just and infinitely kind to all, and wise enough to understand the human problem in all its vast complexity and bring about its final solution. Echoing down the corridors of time from another period of storm and tragedy comes this meaningful entreaty: be still, and know that I am God. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10. Though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, we are to be still and know God. Verses 2, 3. When disaster strikes on British Navy vessels, says Margaret Blair Johnson in Sanctuary, the secret of a peaceful heart, the still is instantly blown. It means, prepare to do the wise thing. When the signal is piped, few men know the wise thing. But in the moments of calm enforced by that signal they find it. Each man calculates his position and checks his resources. By observing the still, they rout confusion and frequently avert catastrophe. So with our personal emergencies, few of us instantly know the wise thing. If only I could know what to do, we cry, forgetting that the order of procedure is, be still. No matter how little you know, or even how little you think you have faith to believe, the next time you need sanctuary, stop instantly all feverish activity and do what those who have found sanctuary do: be still and know. Countless hard-pressed men and women find in religion their place of certain shelter when their hearts cry for spiritual sanctuary. We are again laying hold on the central reality that all religion offers: God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Guideposts, May, 1953. But how can we know God if we cannot see him? How can we be sure he is on the bridge, with his hand on the helm, when we are, as it were, far below in the bowels of the ship? By faith. That is, by believing what he has told us about himself. Where may this be found? In the Bible, which above all else is a revelation of God, lovingly provided by him, that you and I might know him, understand him, trust him, love him, and draw from him those spiritual resources needed to meet life's crises with fortitude. Read what the Bible says about God. First, God is a living person. He is not a myth, a figment of the imagination. Rather, he is the living God, and steadfast forever. Daniel chapter 6 verse 26. He is the living God and the everlasting King. Jeremiah 10:10, RSV. He has a dwelling place. Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place. 1. Kings chapter 8 verse 39. He can see and hear. The eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. 1. Peter chapter 3 verse 12. He thinks and remembers, for he knoweth our frame. He remembereth that we are dust. Psalm chapter 103 verse 14. He is generous, no good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. Psalm chapter 84 verse 11. He is eager to be helpful. I am the Lord thy God, which teacheth thee to profit, which leadeth thee by the way that thou shouldest go. Isaiah chapter 48 verse 17. Second, God is eternal. He endures. He is not here today and gone tomorrow. He is the same yesterday, and today, and forever. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 8. There never was a time when he did not exist, before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hadst formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Psalm chapter 90 verse 2. There never will be a time when he will cease to exist, for I lift up my hand to heaven, and say, I live forever. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 40. His kingdom is everlasting. Thy kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth throughout all generations. Psalm chapter 145 verse 13. He is immortal. Now unto the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, be honor and glory forever and ever. 1. Timothy 1:17. Third, God is omnipotent. He has all power at his command, both riches and honor come of thee, and thou reignest over all, and in thine hand is power and might, and in thine hand it is to make great, and to give strength unto all. 1. Chronicles 29:12. There is nothing he cannot do. I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. Job chapter 42 verse 2. He is free of all restraint. Our God is in the heavens. He hath done whatsoever he hath pleased. Psalm chapter 115 verse 3. He considers nothing impossible. Said Jesus, with God all things are possible. Matthew chapter 19 verse 26. The Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Revelation chapter 19 verse 6. Fourth, God is omniscient. He knows everything. There is nothing hidden from him, for his eyes are upon the ways of man, and he seeth all his goings. Job chapter 34 verse 21. There is nothing he does not understand, his understanding is infinite. Psalm chapter 147 verse 5. There is no word that he does not hear, for there is not a word in my tongue, but, lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Psalm chapter 139 verse 4. There is nothing he does not see. Wrote David, whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning, and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. Psalm chapter 139 verses 7 to 10. Darkness makes no difference to him. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. Verse 12. He is the source and wellspring of all knowledge and wisdom. O the depth of the riches both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out. Romans chapter 11 verse 33. Fifth, God is infinite. He is without limitations of any kind. Not only in power, wisdom, and knowledge, but also in righteousness. My righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. Isaiah 51:8. In every thought, word, and deed he is altogether holy. The Lord is righteous in all his ways, and holy in all his works. Psalm chapter 145 verse 17. His infinite realm is ruled eternally in perfect rectitude. Righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. Psalm chapter 97 verse 2. His mercy is likewise limitless. The mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting upon them that fear him. Psalm chapter 103 verse 17. Such is the God the Bible reveals. He is infinitely powerful yet infinitely compassionate, infinitely wise yet infinitely good, infinitely just yet infinitely merciful. And such is the one who says to us all as the gathering storm envelops us, be still, and know that I am God. His is the hand on history's helm today, and on the helm of your life and mine. Knowing him, trusting him, we shall find the courage we shall need to meet the coming crisis victoriously. 5. View of the throne. From the far reaches of history comes a story of special helpfulness in these dark and dangerous days. In the year that King Uzziah died, writes the prophet Isaiah, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Isaiah chapter 6 verse 1. That must have been about 740 BC. Uzziah's 52-year reign over the kingdom of Judah had just ended and Isaiah's long ministry had just begun. The times were much like our own. Military preparedness and the big deterrent were uppermost in men's minds. Fearing the Assyrians, the Egyptians, and the Philistines, King Uzziah had strengthened himself exceedingly. He had built towers in Jerusalem, and towers in the desert, and had assembled a well-organized army of some 300,000 men that went out to war by bands, and made war with mighty power. Weapons had been provided in abundance, including shields, and spears, and helmets, and habergeons, and bows, and slings to cast stones. Nor were they behind in novel methods of warfare, for engines, invented by cunning men, were set up on the towers and bulwarks, to shoot arrows and great stones withal. 2 Chronicles 26, 8-15. But then, as now, false confidence in armaments was accompanied by moral decay. Isaiah's first message was a rebuke of apostasy. Ah, sinful nation, he said, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters, they have forsaken the Lord, they have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger, they are gone away backward. From the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds, and bruises, and putrefying sores. Isaiah chapter 1 verses 4-6. Looming on the horizon was the shrewd and powerful Tiglath-Pileser III, one of the great kings of Assyria. Ascending his throne in 745 BC, he set out on a series of forays which in 5 years made him master of much of Western Asia. It was then, in the 5th year of his reign, when his conquests were at flood tide, that King Uzziah died. The concern throughout Judah can be imagined. What would be its fate now that its strong and trusted leader had passed away? Would Tiglath-Pileser take this opportunity to move south and wipe out the little nation? Were the Assyrians about to overrun and dominate the whole world? At this moment of profound anxiety and alarm, Isaiah saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, while seraphim cried one to another, Holy, 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 is the Lord of hosts. It was indeed a comforting vision. Judah's throne might be vacant, but God's was not. He was still there. and always would be there, world without end. Unchanged and unchanging through unending years, he would reign serenely over his universe forever and ever, from everlasting to everlasting. On earth there might be fear, uncertainty, and all the wild fever of self-preservation, but not in heaven. There, amid indescribable calm and peace beyond compare, there was time to sing of holiness. On earth sin might reign and apostasy flourish, but not in the presence of God. There righteousness and goodness were preeminent, and would be always. Earthly thrones might totter, kingdoms rise and fall, but the throne of God, sure based on truth and virtue, would endure through all generations. From thence, unmoved by human turmoil or clamor, God would direct the affairs of nations with justice and judgment until his eternal purpose should be achieved. If Isaiah had lacked courage up to this moment, his need was now supplied. Fortified by this vision of the throne of God, he faced the issues of his day with confidence, saying, "Here am I, send me." Isaiah chapter 6 verse 8. In a time of grave perplexity Moses was given a similar vision, Exodus chapter 24 verse 10, as also was the prophet Micaiah, 1 Kings chapter 22 verse 19, and Amos the dedicated herdsman, Amos chapter 9 verse 1. Years later, during the Babylonian captivity, both Daniel chapter 7 verse 9, and Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 1, 10 to 1-5, saw visions of the Lord upon his throne, as also did John on the Isle of Patmos during the persecution of the early church. Revelation chapter 4 verses 1 to 6. These records suggest that in times of special need, when trials and perils abound, a glimpse of God upon his throne is sufficient to banish fear and restore both hope and courage to the heart. You and I may not witness the same dazzling scenes of glory that the prophets of old beheld, but just turning our thoughts heavenward can accomplish the same result. Lift up your eyes is a frequent biblical exhortation and is excellent counsel today. We need to look up from the events and conditions that trouble us and tell ourselves that God not only knows about them but is more concerned than we could possibly be. The very thought that he is in control, leading and directing according to his infinite wisdom, will give us equanimity of spirit and renew our courage. In the midst of his long reign, Nebuchadnezzar was given 7 years' punishment for pride and vainglory. At its conclusion he declared, "At the end of the days I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever, for his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will in the host of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say to him, What doest thou?" Daniel chapter 4 verse 34, 35, RSV. This heathen monarch did not see God as did the prophets of Israel, but lifting his eyes heavenward brought him healing and new hope. His reason returned to him. His judgment was no longer impaired. He saw everything in a new light. Humbly recognizing God's sovereignty over men and nations, he cried, "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are right and his ways are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to abase." Verse 37, RSV. As a result he returned to his royal duties renewed in body and soul, and still more greatness was added to him. Daniel in the lion's den was granted no special vision of God, but evidence is plentiful that this good man took his eyes off the lions and turned them heavenward. In so doing he found the help he so desperately needed. Next morning, when King Darius came to the den to inquire concerning his safety, the prophet replied, "My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me." Daniel chapter 6 verse 22, RSV. Then it was that the king wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, "Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree, that in all my royal dominion men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues, he works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth, he who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions." Verses 25 to 28, RSV. There is a mighty blessing in the upward look. Just thinking about God in a moment of crisis can mean all the difference between cringing fear and holy boldness. For he is the fountain of courage, the never-failing source of Christian fortitude. No one knew this better than that stalwart Christian leader, the Apostle Paul. On his last visit to Jerusalem, though warned again and again of bonds and afflictions awaiting him, he refused to be intimidated. None of these things move me, he said, neither count I my life dear unto myself, so that I might finish my course with joy, and the ministry, which I have received of the Lord Jesus, to testify the gospel of the grace of God. Acts chapter 20 verse 24. The upward look sustained him. His worst trials he adjudged of little account as he let his mind dwell upon the Lord he loved, seated on the right hand of the Majesty on high. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 3. Utterly convinced that the King of the universe was his friend, he feared nothing and nobody. He had troubles innumerable, enough to crush the spirit of the bravest. Think what he suffered. Of the Jews 5 times received I 40 stripes save one, he told the church at Corinth. Thrice was I beaten with rods, once was I stoned, thrice I suffered shipwreck, a night and a day I have been in the deep, in journeyings often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils by mine own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren, in weariness and painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness. Beside those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches. 2 Corinthians 11:24-28. Convinced that God was his friend, the Apostle Paul was undisturbed by the storm that was battering his ship to pieces. To terror-stricken fellow passengers he cried, "Keep up your courage." Ken Gunall, artist copyright PPPA. Did all this bring him to despair? No indeed. With amazing spiritual buoyancy he wrote, "We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, cast down, but not destroyed. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen, for the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal." 2 Corinthians 4-8, 9, 16-18. The New English Bible renders verses 16-18 thus, "No wonder we do not lose heart. Though our outward humanity is in decay, yet day by day we are inwardly renewed. Our troubles are slight and short-lived, and their outcome an eternal glory which outweighs them far. Meanwhile our eyes are fixed, not on the things that are seen, but on the things that are unseen, for what is seen passes away, what is unseen is eternal." Here Paul revealed the secret of his indomitable spirit. By faith he looked beyond the troubles that surrounded him and fastened his gaze upon the throne of God, finding there an inexhaustible reservoir of strength and courage. No wonder he did not lose heart. Perhaps the most striking example of his fortitude under stress occurred during his last voyage across the Mediterranean as a prisoner of the Romans. Not far from Crete the ship, with 276 persons aboard, ran into a heavy storm. For several days and nights the tempest raged, battering the vessel so severely that both crew and passengers lost all hope of seeing land again. Then, as the ship pitched and rolled amid the giant combers, this man of God somehow made his way to where most of the terrified crew and seasick passengers were gathered and brought him this heartening message. "I urge you not to lose heart, not a single life will be lost, only the ship. For last night there stood by me an angel of the God whose I am and whom I worship. Do not be afraid, Paul," he said. "It is ordained that you shall appear before the emperor, and, be assured, God has granted you the lives of all who are sailing with you. So keep up your courage, I trust in God that it will turn out as I have been told." Acts chapter 27 verses 22-25, NEB. And that is how it did turn out. His courage and God's providence carried the whole ship's company to safety on the island of Malta. He saw no glowing vision of the throne of God as did Isaiah or Ezekiel in years long past, but he believed with all his heart that God was in complete control of the situation, just as you and I can believe today. "We walk by faith, not by sight," he said, 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 7. Or, as the New English Bible renders this passage, "Faith is our guide, we do not see him." That wonderful faith made God so real to Paul that with holy boldness he approached the throne of grace to obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 16. Thus when on that stormy night an angel flew from heaven to his aid, and located him in the dark, creaking, stench-filled hold of that sinking vessel, he was not surprised. It seemed exactly the right thing to happen. He had asked for help and his friend the King of Heaven sent it. What else would a true friend do? Thus no trials or hardships depressed him. No disappointments or upset plans caused him to despair. Events that brought terror to others found him in perfect peace, radiating confidence and cheer. We need courage like this today. We shall need it more tomorrow when the gathering storm breaks upon us in all its fury. And we can find it as Paul found it, and Isaiah and Moses and a host of others, by lifting up our eyes to see the Lord, sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. 6. Eye on the future. Of all God's marvelous attributes, none begets more confidence and courage than his ability to read the future. In times of perplexity, it is wonderfully comforting to know that he is fully aware how everything is going to turn out. It is like traveling in a foreign country with a guide who was born there and knows everything about it. Last time I went to Europe, the travel agency assured me that it would be a personally conducted tour. Not that a representative would accompany me all the way, but in every place where I might need help, some competent person would be available. As things turned out, it became almost uncanny the way the well-trained personnel kept turning up to offer their services. In every important city, someone knew exactly when and where I would arrive. Invariably, without fail, as my train stopped at the station, a man would be standing on the platform, right outside my window, ready to greet me by name, escort me to my hotel, discuss the next stage of my trip, and explain everything I needed to know in language I could understand. This remarkably efficient service was, of course, due to the fact that the enterprising agency had sent full particulars of my itinerary ahead, thus giving me a delightful impression of their seeming omniscience. In like manner, but with infinitely fuller knowledge, God is aware of all our plans and undertakings. He knows where we will be at any hour of the day or night, tomorrow, next week, or next year. He knows everything that is going to happen to us right down to the last day of our earthly pilgrimage. He has an eye on the future. He knows the news before the newsmen. He knows what the outcome will be in Berlin, East Germany, Cuba, Thailand, Guatemala, or any other troubled land. He knows what Russia, France, Great Britain, or the United States will be doing a decade from now. The top secret plans of the Kremlin and the Pentagon are open books to him. Nothing that happens anywhere on earth takes him by surprise. How God is able to see events before they happen is one of the sublime mysteries of divinity. Someday, perhaps, he will explain it to us. In the meantime, we need have no doubt that he possesses this remarkable power. Here is his own bold claim. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand. Isaiah chapter 46 verses 9, 10. Again, behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare, before they spring forth I tell you of them. Isaiah chapter 42 verse 9. These are not vain boasts, but statements of fact. The evidence is clear that God can see the end from the beginning, and tell things before they spring forth. History affords instance after instance of the exact fulfillment of predictions he has made through his prophets. Early in the 8th century BC, when the empire of Assyria was at the height of its power, Nahum predicted that its capital city Nineveh would become a total desolation, empty, and void, and waste. Nahum chapter 2 verse 10. With an overrunning flood he will make an utter end of the place. Nahum chapter 1 verse 8. Those were strong words and must have seemed absurd at the time. Probably some of Nahum's acquaintances dismissed them as wishful thinking or the rantings of a religious fanatic. It was as if some modern preacher should announce that Moscow, Paris, or Washington would soon be wiped off the face of the earth. And Nahum spoke long before hydrogen bombs, when the most potent weapons were slings and bows. As years passed and Nineveh continued to prosper, some people no doubt taunted the prophet with having guessed wrong. But instead of retracting, he came back with this choice description of the city's fate. All your fortresses are like fig trees with first ripe figs. If shaken they fall into the mouth of the eater. Nahum chapter 3 verse 12, RSV. While those about him lived in dread of the seemingly invincible Assyrian armies, Nahum remained calm and untroubled, certain of their ultimate defeat. His eye was on the future, as God had revealed it to him, and he was sure the revelation was true. As, of course, it was. Within 100 years Nineveh was overthrown by the Babylonians and thereafter gradually faded from history. In the 7th century AD a battle was fought between the Romans and the Persians on the site where the Assyrian